Alright everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be going into the services layer. I know we briefly touched on that during our last video, but today we're going to be really jumping into defining these interfaces and what they look like and getting the interfaces written out for our services. The actual implementation we'll take care of during our unit testing videos, but for now defining the interfaces is a good solid start. So let's get into it. So first off, we're going to have our iPost service. This is what's responsible for doing all of the post-related things, right? We want to be able to create a post, retrieve posts, either by ID, which will give us a single post, by user, which will give us a list of posts, or by time, which will give us a list of posts. And then we want to be able to update a post. And at some point, we're going to want to make sure that either the user owns the post or the user is a moderator, which we'll take care of in a future video. And then we want to be able to delete a post, which again, we want to make sure that the user either owns the post or the user's moderator, which is in the authorization and authentication videos. All right, so to get a little bit more into the weeds of what this iPost service is going to look like, we have the following methods defined. We have create post async, and that's going to return a nullable post DTO task. And all that task means is that this is an asynchronous operation, right? When we were doing the services or the dependency injection video, we saw that we can await like our context.save changes async, right? And that means it's an asynchronous method, which means it needs to return a task. And this will take in text, user handle is published, and a cancellation token. Then we want to be able to get our posts, which will return a list of post DTO's tasks. And all it takes in is a cancellation token because we're not doing any kind of filtering on that list. We're just going to return all of the posts sorted from most recent to least recent. And then we want to get posts for user async, and it will take in a user handle and a cancellation token, and it will return a list of post DTO tasks. And then we want to get post by ID async, and just like our create post async, we're going to return a nullable post DTO task, right? So if we pass in an invalid post ID, we're going to return null here, which is going to be an indicator that, hey, something went wrong, and we'll return like a 404 not found response. And all it's going to do is take in a post ID, which is a good, and a cancellation token. Then we want to update a post. So update post async, which will again return a nullable post DTO task. It'll take in the post ID, the new text, the new published status, and the cancellation token. And then we will have delete post async, which will just return a task. That's the async equivalent of returning void. And it will take in a post ID, which is a good, and a cancellation token. The reason we're returning void or returning nothing instead of a nullable post DTO is if a post doesn't exist, we don't necessarily care because that means it either A, never existed, or B, has already been deleted. And in either case, there's nothing for us to do here. So that's why I choose to just return a task here. All right, so let's look at our other service. So we have our iLike service, and this service is responsible for allowing a user to like and unlike a post. So we'll have like post async, which will allow a user to like a post for if the entry doesn't already exist, otherwise do nothing, right? So if they try to like the same post multiple times, we're not going to store it multiple times, we're not going to toggle it, we're just going to do nothing and pretend like it was successful. And then delete like async deletes a like for the post for the given user handle if the like exists, otherwise do nothing. It's the same thing with deleting a post, right? We don't necessarily care if that method fails because that means that the data doesn't exist and we didn't want it to exist, so that's success. All right, so you can see both of these methods are going to return a task because we don't really have data that we care about that we're going to be returning here. So for the like post async, it's going to take in a post ID and a user handle and a cancellation token. For the delete like async, it's going to take in the same things. Because you'll see that these methods are very, very similar when we get to the implementation. One is just adding the like and the other is deleting the like. But other than that, they're going to be very, very similar. All right, So let's jump into some code. Oops. All right. So if you remember, inside of our services folder, we've got our posts folder, and we've already got our iPost service. Now, I said that we were going to return a post DTO, and right now we're just returning a GUID. So what is a DTO? Well, a DTO stands for Data Transformation Object, I think. And basically, when we are returning, let's say we were returning here instead a post, right? So we're going to return a post here, and let's look at what our post looks like. All right, so our post has an ID, text user handle is published. We don't really care about the last edited at or created at for the purposes of our DTO, so we don't need to select those two fields. We also will not be including a list of all of the likes in our DTO. We might have a like count, but we won't be including all of the likes. So since we don't want to return everything that's in our database, we are going to create a DTO. And honestly, even if we did want to return everything from our database, we would still create a DTO. Just in case we added some things to our database later that we didn't want to return. So that's why we're going to be doing a DTO. All right. So in our microblogger.api, I'm going to just create a new folder called DTOs. Right? And then in our DTOs, I'm going to create a new file. It's going to be a record. Remember, we used records in our intro to C# video. I really like using records for DTOs because of that built-in equality that we get. So when we're writing our unit tests later, it'll be really easy to check to see, did the service return the post that we were expecting? And we're going to call this post DTO. All right, so, oh, that's interesting. I don't know why it gave me public record class. It should just be a record. All right, so what properties do we want to return here? Well, we want the GUID ID, right? We want the string text, we want the string user handle, and what else do we have here? Data entities post. We definitely want is published, and we do want the created at actually. And we'll give it a like count. All right, so that is all of our DTO. I'm going to split this up onto multiple lines so it's a little easier to see on one screen. All right, so that is our DTO. So let's do a little bit of a refactor here, and we're going to tell this that it's going to return a post DTO. And you see here I added our using statement up at the top to open up that folder of code. All right, so create post async, and it's going to return a nullable task post DTO. And other than that, we have our text, user handle is published, and cancellation token. So now we're going to just say we want a task list post DTO, get posts async, cancellation token, right? Because that's the only real argument that we need here, is just whether or not it's been canceled. Then we can do another task list post DTO, get posts for user async, and that's going to have our string user handle and our cancellation token. Then we're going to have our task post DTO question mark to mark it as nullable again. Get post by ID async. GUID post ID cancellation token. Then we will have our task post DTO update post async. In a future video, we'll probably come back and refactor this to return a result type of some kind, because right now we're just going to be returning null if there's some kind of error with updating the post. Like, let's say they tried to update a post to be an empty string, and we don't allow that. We'll probably return a result type that will include error messages as well as success state. But that's a little bit more complicated than I want to jump into right now. So we're going to just return a nullable post DTO. All right, so we want our good post ID. We want our string text. Bool is published. And cancellation token, cancellation token. And then we have our task. Delete post async. Again, good post ID and cancellation token, cancellation token. All right, and then we're actually going to go in here and just, you'll notice that we have a compiler error here. We're going to delete this method and just tell it via control period implement interface. And you see it has all of our methods that we wrote earlier. They just will throw an exception if we try to use them, which is fine. And we can delete this reference to our entities namespace and this system namespace. All right, so now that we've got our post service interface and our post DTO, let's go ahead and create a new folder in here for our likes service. Right? So this one is going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to just have a interface, and it's going to be I like service, and we can delete this using system. And remember, we're just returning tasks here. We're not returning any information. We're just returning something that can be awaited. Task like post async, and that's going to have a good post ID, a string user handle, and a cancellation token. Task delete like async, good post ID, string user handle, cancellation token, cancellation token. All right, that is it. That is all we need to do to declare the interfaces for our services. So the last thing we'll do in this video is I'll generate the class for this I like services implementation, and we'll register it with our dependency injection container so we can keep up on the dependency injection skills a little bit. So this will be a class, and it will be a like service. And again, delete this using system. I like service and control period implement interface. Great. So now we can just go into our program.cs, and right here where we had our iPost service being registered, we can builder.services.add scope I like service. And then while we're in here, let's clean up our iIdentity generator service because we really don't need that. Throw away, and I'm going to just delete this whole folder. Which, let's see, did that break anything? .NET build. Yes. So what we need to do is, you see here we had this namespace for the throwaway namespace, so we just need to delete that. And then we need to go into our weather forecast controller. You see here it's actually got a little link for us. So we can just delete that. Delete that from the constructor. All right, I think that is all of the errors. So let's just do another .NET build. And great, it works. So what we can do is just, let's see, we are on the video 5 branch, video 6 end, git add, git commit -m, video 6 end. All right, so now we have our two services defined. And in the next video, we're going to start working on our post service implementation and writing unit tests for it. So that'll be pretty exciting. I'm a big fan of writing tests with XUnit. I think it's a lot of fun. So yeah, I will catch you guys in the next one.